Okay, before we go back to where we were holding before Tishrei, the laws of Muktzeh, I just want to mention one thing about Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem that we just began. So before that, the different customs about no Tachnun now. Everybody says there was no Tachnun today. From now to the end of the month, some people say Tachnun. Our custom now, the Rebbe writes, is we don't say Tachnun. But there are other opinions. So if you walk into another shul and they're saying Tachnun, don't get nervous, because there are many opinions that say Tachnun after today. But our custom is until the end of the month. That's number one. Number two, on
which shuls are they so we don't walk in?
Go to Chabad, you're safe. I mean, if for that you're safe. I don't know what's going to happen. Other things, but okay. Now, we started saying Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem. So, during the summer, some people say Merid Atol, some people don't say Merid Atol. Like the Sfardim and Chabad, we say Merid Atol. The Ashkenaz, Nosach Ashkenaz, doesn't say Merid Atol. They just say Atar Rav Lehishia Mechalko Chaim Bechesed, which is important for the dinim now. What happens if somebody by mistake now, instead of saying Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem, said Merid Atol, it's fine. They don't have to repeat the Shemon Esrei. But if, by mistake, they left it out, they didn't say Merid Atol either, then you have to repeat the Shemon Esrei. Now, what is that? What's the case? If you want to follow in the Sidurim on page 46, it's just easier when you see it inside. I mean, that's the Amid of Shachris, it's just, I think, bigger, whatever. So, on 46, we start saying Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem. What happens if somebody didn't say it? They said by mistake, they're in the middle of the bracha. Wherever they are, they say Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem, and it's fine. They say Matzmiach Yeshua, Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem. If you say V'nem Anato Lachis Mesim Baruch Ato Hashem Mechaya HaMesim, and you did not begin the next bracha, you say Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem, and then you're fine, you just continue. So anywhere in that bracha, you can add the words Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem. But once you say the next bracha Ata, once you say the word Ata, it's too late. Therefore, you have to go back to the beginning of the Amidah, because the first three brachas are one. You can't just go back to the second bracha Ata Gibor, because if halachically the first three brachas are one. So if you forgot it and you were still within the bracha, you say Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem. If you started the next bracha, then you have to go back to the beginning of the Shemon Esrei. Anywhere you are in the middle of the Shemon Esrei that you remembered, you have to start again. Now, if you're starting again, you don't have to take the 3 steps back, because you already did that. You just start again. Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melkei Aviseinu. You know, you don't even have to say Hashem Sfasei Tiftach. You could if you want, but you just go back from the beginning of Shemon Esrei. What happened if somebody doesn't remember what they said? They don't remember, did I say Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem or not? So again, if you say Merid Atol a whole year, then there's no problem, because worst comes to worst, you said Merid Atol. But if you don't say Merid Atol, and now you don't remember what did I say, so then we assume that you didn't say it, you said what you're accustomed to, and then you have to go back again to the beginning of the Shemon Esrei, beginning of the Amidah. So it's very simple. If you say Merid Atol, you're fine. If you remember within the bracha, you say Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem. If you finish the bracha, you say Mashav Aruach HaMerid HaGeshem, as long as you didn't start the next bracha. That's as far as that goes. Okay, going back to where we left off, I believe this is where we left off in Muktzeh. We're talking about various different types of Muktzeh. There's Muktzeh, what's called Keli Shemalachto L'Isr, a vessel whose primary use is for something forbidden. For instance, a pen is made to write. You're not allowed to write on Shabbos. So a pen is a vessel whose designated use is for something forbidden. So it's Muktzeh. But what does it mean of Muktzeh? There's 2 times you would be allowed to move it. If you need the place it's on, or you want to do it for something permissible. You want to use it for something permissible. The classic example given in halacha, a hammer is made for construction. Now construction is also on Shabbos. So therefore a hammer, whose primary use is for construction, is keli shemalachta le'isid. Its primary use is for something forbidden. But what happens if somebody wants to take a hammer to crack open a nut or a coconut? So now I'm using it for a permissible use, I would be allowed to. But if, or somebody left it on the dining room table by mistake, and I need the place, so then I can pick it up and move it and put it where it belongs. But let's say, where would I not be allowed to move a hammer or a pen? If it's outside, and it's raining and it might get ruined, or I'm afraid somebody might steal it, then you would not be allowed to move it, because it's not called tzeref gufei or mekayme. But in halacha says, you can create, you can cheat a little bit and create a usage for it. So let's say you left your hammer outside, and you don't want it to get stolen, you say, oh no, I need to crack open a nut. So even though you weren't going to do it, but now you're allowed to do that. That's one level of muktzeh we learned. We learned another classification of muktzeh that's called muktzeh machamis chsor and kiss. It's something which is used for something forbidden, but it's worse because it's something that you would not use for anything else but what it's designated for, because you're going to ruin it. To give you, again, examples that halacha gives, a sheikh's knife is very delicate. It takes a lot of work to make it straight, and no nicks and no nothing. It's a lot of work. And it's very expensive. Nobody will use a sheikh's knife to cut a piece of cake. They just won't. Why? Because they're going to ruin the knife. They're going to have to remake it. So therefore, even though it's made for something forbidden, which normally you would be allowed to move it if you need the place, so you want to use it for something permissible, but in this case it would be completely muktzeh. Can't move it for any reason. Or an expensive piece of paper, parchment paper, or paper. One second, papers are very expensive, like driver's license. Yeah, you're not going to use it to do things with it because you don't want to ruin it, or a passport or things like that. All those types of things are what's called muktzeh machmas kis. We already learned all these. I'm just starting reviewing it for the next. So that is completely muktzeh. You can't move it for any reason. What?
If it's a shochet's knife or let's say a shofar, things that are used for mitzvah.
No, shofar is no.
Can you say
there's a difference between one second. There's a difference between shofar and a sheikhet's knife.
Okay.
Shofar is keli shemalachta le'iser. His primary use is for something forbidden. So because it's a musical instrument. Now you're not allowed to play musical instruments on Shabbos. Even when Rosh Hashanah is on Shabbos, we don't blow shofar. But a person would not hesitate to use a shofar as a bookmark, or to prop up a book, or, they wouldn't hesitate it. So a shofar is keli shemalachta le'iser, but it's not muktzeh machmas and kiss. So a shofar you can move if you need the place, or you want to use a shofar for something permissible. I'll give you a simple example. You want to use it as a funnel. Right? One side is wide, and the other, huh? I'm not saying, I'm talking hypothetically. Yeah, don't do it. I wouldn't do it anyway. But technically, to use, let's say you want to use a shofar as a funnel, because you pour in the liquid in the wider side, and then you put it in, comes out in there. If you want to do that, right? So that would be tzeref gufei. That would be permitted to do it. Except, by the way, shofar on Rosh Hashanah, that Shabbos is completely muktzeh. One second. So that's a second classification of muktzeh. Then you have another things that are intrinsically muktzeh. Stones, money, dirt, whatever, sand. There's things that are just 100% muktzeh, that the only time they wouldn't be muktzeh if you designate them before Shabbos for a permissible use for a regular basis. Okay?
With a shochet's knife, can you move it to save it? Let's say it's going to be destroyed.
No. Sometimes you can ask a goy, sometimes you can move it with your foot.
But you wouldn't use it for a bookmark.
Huh?
You use it for a bookmark, you won't use it for
Sheikh's knife?
Yeah, you'll use it for things
Oh, no.
You're not going to use the blade, but you use the handle.
No, the whole thing, it's too delicate for something to... I never saw a sheikhet use a knife for a bookmark. Or Moyle's knife for that matter. Okay.
There are uses that you could use it for, not cutting a cake, but other things that you would.
But you don't. People don't use a sheikhet's knife. They'll put it away and make sure it's in a designated place for shechita. That's the classification of it. I'll give you an example. Expensive paper, parchment paper, or calligraphy paper, those types of things. Or a calligraphy pen. Yeah, it's a very delicate, expensive pen. Nobody's going to use it as a bookmark. They won't. They put it in a set place, they put it away, and that's where it is, and it stays there until they need it. That's the classification Muktzeh gives. So now you go into the questions, is a phone today, it's definitely keli shemalachta le'isr. Right? It's definitely used. But now the question is this also Muktzeh kiss? So again, a lot of times it depends on the person himself. Would I use this for a bookmark? Maybe some people would, some people wouldn't. But it's something, again, they define it in halacha as something you put away in a place, it's a designated place, and you make sure that, that's where it stays until you need it. So the question is, okay, now what we're starting for 2 minutes is, now generally speaking, food is not muktzeh. Edible food is not muktzeh. But what happens if you have food that's not edible on Shabbos? Okay? For instance, you have raw rice. Rice, that's raw. Rice is a food. But nobody eats raw rice. And you're not planning to feed your animal with it. So, raw rice, again, tomorrow's Friday, Sunday, we'll continue all this. But raw rice would be muktzeh on Shabbat, but it's completely muktzeh. You can't move it. You left it on your counter, the bag of rice, you wouldn't be able to move it for any reason whatsoever. Yom Tiv, on the other hand, rice wouldn't be muktzeh. Why? Because rice, on Yom Tiv you could cook. So the rice is edible. You just go cook it. You have raw meat, raw fish. All these types we'll learn a lot of dinim about that. So a lot also depends. Let's say people start eating raw meat. In the time, if you look in halacha and the Gemara, people used to eat raw meat. So in halacha it says raw meat's not muktzeh, because people ate it. But then you have generation that nobody ate raw meat. It's not Kabbalah. It's very simple. If nobody eats raw meat, so it's not edible. If it's not edible, then it's muktzeh. Okay, so now you have the sushis with this. We'll talk about that.